Actually, I wasn't going to mention the fact that the latter half of that reading isn't often included. And the reason why it's not often included is because they actually believe it was an alternative ending added later by a scribe who wasn't happy with the fact that it was the women who discovered Jesus and proclaimed him risen. So they wanted to add on more to it. But it is interesting to note that as Bible study ended on Monday, now for those of you who don't know, Mondays is a very busy day in the office, so I tend not to be in Bible study because everybody in the world comes through the front door on Monday that needs to come through the front door. They can't wait till any other day. So one of the participants in Bible study comes by and sticks his head in my door and says, "You need to change your reading. It doesn't mention mountains at all." I'm like, wait a minute. I read that. Are we reading the same text? You see, and he said to them, "Go into all the world and proclaim the good news to the whole of creation." Somehow, I think mountains are included in that. Maybe not. Some people consider the only worthy creation being us humans, which has led to many unfortunate events. We are to preach even to the mountaintops, for they are all a part of God's creation. The creation that God proclaimed good. And the psalmist reminds us even, "Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, his holy mountain." Beautiful in elevation is the joy of all the earth. That's Psalm 48. Though the psalm specifically mentions Mount Zion, how can we praise one mountain of God's over another? For just as all humanity are God's children, so too all creation belongs to God. Yet, this being the season of creation, again, we must see how we have treated God's creation. What have we done? How can we change? Our mountains are harvested for wood and coal. They clear-cut the top of the mountain, and then they blow it apart to find the coal that's buried underneath. This practice continues today, but it's hard to imagine what that looks like without seeing it. And so, I do have a short video I'd like you to watch.
West Virginia was mined by men working deep underground. But by the 1970s, a new kind of mining was starting to transform West Virginia on a scale that can still be hard to comprehend unless you see it from the air. At first, coal-rich Mingo County looks like many other forested areas of the Appalachians, but when the fog clears, you'll soon discover that many of the mountains themselves are gone. This is the land of mountaintop removal, a mining technique so powerful and efficient that companies can simply carve off the tops of entire mountains to get their coal buried below. This mine is one of the biggest mountaintop mines in the state. It's called OPEC 21. Not long ago, this area was planted with trees and hills. Now, it's a 12,000-acre dig site. It can take just a few men and a few monster machines to destroy an entire Appalachian mountain. Once the trees are cleared out, geologists locate the seams of coal below. Then, the company drills holes, stuffs them with powerful explosive, and blows them up to loosen earth and rock. Next, excavators move in to rip the mountain apart, scoop by scoop. For every ton of coal produced in a mine like this one, the company is to remove 16 tons of earth. The best way to grasp the scale of this operation is to watch it from the air. It looks like a giant sandbox with enormous motorized toys. All this activity has one singular purpose: to uncover valuable seams of coal like this one, and then dig it out and ship it tomorrow. Surface mining is much safer for West Virginia's miners, since they don't have to work underground in potentially dangerous tunnels. But it comes with a huge environmental cost. 500 mountains have already disappeared, along with the habitats
I find the images in this video painful. It is terrifying when one thinks of the wildlife displaced or destroyed. The Appalachian voices tell us that the Appalachian region is home to one of the oldest and most biologically diverse mountain systems on the continent. Yet tragically, mountaintop removal mining has already destroyed more than 500 mountains, encompassing more than 1 million acres of central and southern Appalachia. After the coal companies blast apart the mountaintops, they dump the rubble into neighboring valleys where lie the headwaters of streams and rivers like the Kanawha or the Clinch and the Big Sandy. The exposed rock leaches heavy metals and other toxins that pose enormous health threats to the region's plant and animals and people. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency estimates that the mountaintop removal valley fills are responsible for burying more than 2,000 miles of vital Appalachian headwater streams. As a result, water downstream of the mountaintop removal mines has significantly higher levels of sulfate and selenium and increases in electrical conductivity, which is how they measure heavy metals. These changes in the water quality can directly kill aquatic species and disrupt their life cycles so severely that populations dwindle and have even disappeared. This practice causes extinction. So why is mountaintop removal an issue of faith? The United Church of Christ reminds us, quote, "When mountains are demolished for coal mining, they are gone forever. They lose their topsoil and forest, animal habitat, and ability to filter water and become uninhabitable places for humans and animals. Mountaintop removal is a permanent desecration of the gift of creation, from the benevolent and gracious Creator. Mountaintop removal also destructively pollutes the streams and the valleys where people have lived for centuries in Appalachia. It destroys their culture, their way of making a living, and their family structures. It happens in remote places where there is little self-determining political organization, and it is a colonization and exploitation of the land by outside interests. If it were a profitable enterprise for the people of Appalachia, then they would at least benefit economically. However, the opposite is true, as the Appalachian counties are consistently among the poorest in the United States. Mountaintop removal is a choice and not an inevitable circumstance. Power can be generated in many ways that are sustainable and beneficial to the health of the mountains, the ecosystem, and the people who live there. As demonstrated by the people of Coal River Valley, the mountaintops can sustain wind farms that lead to power generation, local jobs, and sustainable ecosystems. People of faith make choices to live in harmony with God's creation, or not. Creation is groaning with the scabs of mountaintop removal. End quote. One of the things that is mentioned, and they keep mentioning humanity here, they mention whole communities are relocated because the coal mining companies have so much power, they simply just buy up the land and push people out. Because they use high-end equipment, many jobs are now lost. Because the Appalachian people often live off the land, their sources for clean water are dwindling. So, I had said that I would always bring these sermons back home to here. Literally, right here. So how does this affect us? Well, in the past, California has been a willing participant by using coal energy as a state, and we still are. That's the sad news. The good news is that right now in California, we're literally only using 0.15%. 15% of 1% of a percentage point of our energy comes from coal. We are almost completely coal-free. And here in Sonoma County, well, a survey of power plants in Sonoma in 2017 showed that we had 29 different power plants located in our county. 29. That seems like a huge number of power plants for one county, but wait, 12 are solar. 3 are biomass. Another 12 are geothermal. 1 was hydroelectric. 1 was natural gas, but the natural gas plant makes fuel cells for the county. One of the solar plants is actually Clos du Bois Winery. Clos du Bois says this about their winery: we're especially proud of our solar initiative, which utilizes over 4,000 solar panels to power our winery almost 100%. The equivalent of providing electricity to 164 homes a year. Of course, here's something to think about. When you're drinking your wine, it takes 164 homes to power the energy to help make that. But I'm happy to say that we have choices here in Petaluma and Sonoma County that we have made. We have made wise choices. I personally choose to pay a higher rate for Sonoma's Clean Power Premium. So 100% of my energy is green and clean and renewable. See, as we make choices to honor God's creation, we are proclaiming the good news to all that we in the United Church of Christ seek a just world for all by initiating and supporting programs that proclaim our love of children, our love of neighbor, and our love of creation. I'm going to close with what we just heard from Isaiah. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the messenger who announces peace, who brings good news, who announces salvation, who says to Zion, the mountaintop, your God reigns. We have choices to make. In this season of creation, we have talked about our earth, our humanity, our sky, and our mountain. And that's just a small part of it. But it helps us to look at the bigger picture and to remember that when God created each and every one of those things, God proclaimed it good. And we are responsible to honor that, to cherish it, and where we can, to bring it back. Amen.